Hello, I'm Het, and welcome to All Hat No Cattle. Today we'll be looking at another Australian Broadcasting Corporation video, this one titled Muslims. A few facts about Australian Muslims. They comprise only 2.2% of the Australian population. That's according to a 2011 census. However, general Australians believe the Muslim population is closer to 18%, according to a 2014 poll. One thing to note, there are 4 couples being asked questions in this video. I use the term couple loosely because there are 4 sets of 2, not necessarily people in a relationship, as you'll see. That inclusivity, however, makes it very difficult to make a cogent response, as ABC goes back and forth and forward and then back a step again, trying to keep everybody in the loop. It's maddening. Hopefully I did a good enough job editing to keep you going along. With that said, let's get to it.
Why are you so fat?
Is every sexual experience an orgy?
Have you had the surgery?
Can you shower yourself?
Is dwarf tossing okay?
Can you buy drugs in jail?
What's good about learning you'll die?
You ready, Monson?
I'm ready, let's go.
Should we be more bubbly?
Are you going to go first?
Yeah, I'll read.
Eldest first, yeah? I'm very well mannered.
Okay.
Why are you bringing Islam here? Do you want Sharia law in Australia? Do you? What are you doing to this country? You're destroying our culture.
I can think of several reasons why she's giggling so much. A few off the top of my head: she's a spastic, she's extremely nervous, or she doesn't know how to answer the question without sounding like she really is trying to bring Sharia law into the country and she wants to soft pedal it somehow.
Why am I bringing Islam here? I'm not really. I was born here. You were born here as well.
I was born here, my parents were born here, my grandparents were born here.
There is a mosque which is 146 years old, so Islam and Muslims have been here for a long period of time.
It's not a question of how long you've been there. It's what you're doing while you're there. More on that later.
Some people just don't understand why I would want to convert. They just can't understand why I would want to give up some of the things that they enjoy. The truth is I wasn't giving up much because my just internal personal beliefs aligned with a lot of Islamic teachings anyway.
First of all, that's not the question being asked. I don't know how that came up. And second, okay, you agree with some of the teachings of Islam, like forbidding the use of alcohol and drugs. If that's what you want, good for you. But does that also mean you're for your wife walking around with her head covered all the time? That seems to be the case. Are you for beating your wife when she won't have sex with you, as long as you do it right? The beating part, not the sex part. Are you for implementing Islam by force if necessary? These are things we'd like to know as well.
As far as Sharia law is concerned, most people think that Sharia has all to do with criminal punishments.
They say they have Sharia law in some Muslim countries, and the stoning to death and the public beheadings and honor killings, but they practice it based on culture. We're actually taught as Muslims that whatever country that you live in, you have to abide by the laws of that country.
I don't see what you mean by practicing Sharia based on culture. These are literal interpretations of laws handed down since the Quran. Culture has nothing to do with it. Things like FGM, yes, that's culture. I like the part about not practicing Sharia, but the laws of the country you're currently living in. Well, that's all well and good, unless you talk to people in, say, Germany, France, Norway, Sweden, the UK. They didn't get that memo. Neither did Australia. More on that in a little bit.
When I look at those atrocities, I and most Muslims don't think it's Islam at all.
The criminal punishments are only a tiny, tiny section of the Sharia, and in fact they're not practiced in most Muslim countries.
That Imam's bit about ISIS atrocities or other Sharia atrocities being committed in the name of not Islam, that's been beaten to death. There's nothing more I can say about that. However, the little old lady's comment about the Sharia laws governing criminal acts not being used in most Muslim countries. Well, that's true, not most, but let me ask her this question. Does that mean you're still against them? Are you against public beheadings? Are you against stonings? Are you against throwing gays off of roofs or hanging them from giant cranes? Are you?
The word Sharia means a divine constitution by which a person lives.
Doesn't sound very culture-driven to me.
Covers everything from personal behaviour, like what you wear, what you eat, how you behave towards other people.
In essence, like every Muslim who follows the Islamic rules or principles is already following Sharia. So the idea that it's going to be implemented as a forceful thing on people that aren't Muslim or don't follow Islam, then is kind of ridiculous.
Okay, well, here's a case of Sharia law getting into the legal record as a matter of family court. A mother argued Islamic law was the reason why her kids couldn't live with her. She said her new husband was not obligated to look after them under the law. Her 2 children went into foster care after she refused to look after them. And her 17-year-old son was allowed to live with a father with a history of violence. The mother, who was born in Lebanon, told the family court Islamic law, which is also known as Sharia law, meant her children could not live with her as her husband was not obligated to look after them. This case was heard in the New South Wales Family Court. It involved a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old whose mother married again after divorcing from their father. I would love to see the divorce case on that. And according to the judge, the mother has completely abrogated her responsibilities as a parent in refusing to have the children live with her and proffering as an excuse that her new husband should not be required to care for another man's children, as it's contrary to Islamic law, according to the judge. Just as an aside, Islamic law expert Dr. Hussein Ismaili told The Australian the mother's argument was not based on any legal basis he had heard of. So here we have an incident of Sharia law, which is not actually Sharia law, being entered into Australian case law. This is a precedent, a legal precedent, and can be used in future court cases.
Because I've lived overseas in Arab countries, I feel like sometimes they're worse off over there. They're more oppressed over there. And that's why it's better for us, like as Muslims, to live in a country like Australia and just follow the Australian law.
See previous refutation?
As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing in Australian law which stops me from being a good Muslim, and there's nothing in Islam which stops me being a good Australian.
And what if I told you being a good Muslim
you're keeping
and
Sharia
being a
to
good
yourselves.
Australian weren't necessarily the same thing? Let's reference an article by Brian Seymour of Yahoo 7 News Australia. This is from April of last year, entitled, Law of the Land? Is Sharia operating in our suburbs? Well, the answer is yes. According to an interviewer here, he had been talking with a person known as the Grand Mufti in February of last year. And once he had finished filming, he saw something occurring next door. And the Mufti says, "Oh, that's the Sharia tribunal we run every Wednesday." Okay, no Sharia. Right. So here it talks about a successor to the Grand Mufti, who was a major figure in a group that has alleged ties to Al-Qaeda and the group behind the Bali bombings in 2002. Those bombings killed 202 people and included 88 Australians. There is a Melbourne lawyer by the name of Matt Awad, and he is an experienced practitioner in family law. He gets a lot of clients, almost all female, who say they have been disadvantaged by Sharia settlements conducted at another center in Victoria. He cites the case of one client whose 52-year-old husband decided he wanted a second wife, in this case, a 19-year-old from the old country. Well, who wouldn't want that? So what about having a second wife? Well, it's okay to Sharia, so why not? So the first wife agreed to a sham divorce where she signs the papers for a legal divorce under Australian law, but remains married under Islamic law. See, the reason for that is he can't get married a second time in Australia without a divorce certificate. So she had to consent to the divorce. It wasn't her idea. She had to consent. And Sharia's perfectly fine with that. So what happened? The guy got his wife, while his first wife wound up alone, and, according to the lawyer, about $150,000 poorer from a settlement that would have been greater if arranged through the family court. Thank goodness Islam is the religion of female empowerment. As I said in the beginning, good Australians, good Muslims, not necessarily the same thing. And there's that. Mind you, this was only the first of something like 8 questions in this video. Some of them, like in the fat video, are too inane to even cover. There are a few, however, that I may do a video on in the future. We'll see how this one does. I appreciate your coming to the channel and watching this video. In the future, I hope to have more content that you'll like. Until then, be well, and as always, thank you for your attention.